A ladder built by another man can collapse at any time, but the ladder you build with sweat will carry you to the top. The sun was high and bright over the graduation field of the National University. Thousands of students were celebrating, but two men stood out. Julian was at the center of a group of wealthy friends. Their fathers were influential chiefs and top government officials. Julian laughed as they popped expensive champagne. He told everyone, "Why should I sweat for a job? My circle is full of kings. One phone call and I am at the top." He believed his life was already a success because of who he knew. In a quiet corner of the same field, Elias stood with his mother. Her hands were rough from years of selling fried fish at the roadside market. She had sacrificed everything to pay for Elias's education. Elias held his certificate tightly. He looked at his mother's tired face and said, "Mama, thank you for the little you had. From today, I will build the life you deserve. I don't have a big man to call, but I have my hands and a God who sees my heart." That evening, at a final student dinner, Julian teased Elias about his plan to start a small electronics business. Julian said, "Elias, life is about who you know. Why climb the stairs when you can take the elevator? My father's friends are the gatekeepers of this city. While you are struggling in the sun, I will be in a boardroom." Elias smiled and replied, "Julian, I prefer to build my own ladder. That way, no one can take it away from me." The real world began on Monday morning. Julian woke up at noon in his comfortable home. He spent his time scrolling through social media, waiting for a message from an influential billionaire he had met at a party. He sent a text. "Good morning, sir. I have graduated. I am ready for the position we discussed." He spent the rest of the day playing video games, convinced that his big break was coming. At 5 a.m. that same Monday, Elias was already at the city's busiest electronic market. He didn't have an office. He stood at the entrance with a small bag of tools. He was a graduate, but he shouted to everyone passing by, "Bring your broken laptops. I fix all electronic boards." Many people pushed him aside, and the sun burnt his skin, but Elias stayed there until 9 p.m., waiting for his first customer. A month passed, and Julian's phone remained silent. The billionaire did not reply. Julian called him, but the man's secretary said, "The director is on a business trip in Europe. Please do not call this line again." Julian felt a small pinch of fear. He reached out to another friend, but that friend was also busy. Julian realized that rich people like to party with friends, but they don't always want to work with them. In the crowded market, Elias finally got a difficult job. A man's laptop had been rejected by every other repairer. Elias sat on a wooden crate in the heat for 6 hours, working with his soldering iron. When the screen finally flickered to life, the man was so happy he gave Elias 5,000 naira. Elias didn't buy a cold drink. He bought a better tool and gave the rest to his mother for food. He was laying the first brick of his empire. Julian wanted to keep up his big boy image. He went to a high-end club with his wealthy friends. He spent his last savings to buy a round of drinks so they wouldn't think he was struggling. They called him the legend. Julian felt powerful for a few hours, but when he got home to his dark room, he realized he didn't have money to buy a common loaf of bread. He was living a life of shadows. Elias's reputation for honesty grew. He saved enough money to rent a tiny kiosk, a small iron box by the side of the road. It was small and hot, but he branded it Elias Tech. He was no longer a street hustler, he was a business owner. He started staying awake until midnight to finish repairs, using a small torchlight when the power went out. Julian finally got an interview at a top engineering firm through his father's old connection. He walked in with pride, thinking the job was a gift. But the lead engineer asked him basic technical questions about power systems. Julian had spent his university days relying on others, so he didn't have the knowledge. The engineer said, "A name can bring you to the door, but only your value can open it. You are not ready for this office." Julian's family suffered a great financial loss. Suddenly, the wealthy circle disappeared. The people who used to call Julian every day stopped picking up his calls. Julian realized that in the world of the elite, if you are not useful or wealthy, you are invisible. He was left with expensive clothes, but an empty stomach. Elias's business became too big for his kiosk. He took a risk and moved to a large warehouse in a busy commercial district. He wasn't just repairing anymore, he was buying and selling spare parts. He hired 2 young boys who were hungry for success. He told them, "In this place, we don't wait for luck. We work until luck has no choice but to find us." Julian tried to start a transport business by borrowing money to buy a car. But instead of working, he used the car to visit friends and show off. He couldn't pay for fuel or maintenance. Eventually, the car broke down, and the people he borrowed money from came to seize it. Julian was left standing on the road, watching his pride being towed away. Julian's mother fell sick. He went to his powerful friends to beg for a loan for her surgery. One by one, they told him they were tight or busy. The same people who drank his father's wine now treated him like a stranger. Julian sat on a hospital floor, crying, realizing that a circle built on money is a circle built on smoke. One afternoon, Julian was at a bus stop, looking tired and hungry. A clean white truck drove past with the name Elias Tech International on the side. He saw Elias sitting in the front, looking sharp and focused. Julian felt a deep sense of regret. He remembered how he used to mock Elias. But instead of hiding, Julian decided to do the hardest thing. He decided to ask for help. Julian went to Elias's warehouse. He saw the busy movement of goods and heard the sound of a thriving business. When he finally saw Elias, Julian didn't ask for money. He said, "Elias, I was a fool. I thought who I knew would make me, but I have nothing. Please, I don't want a gift. I want a job. Teach me how to work." Elias looked at his old friend. He didn't laugh at him. He said, "Julian, I will give you a job, but you will not be a manager. You will start in the loading bay. You will carry boxes and count stock like everyone else. If you can be humble enough to start at the bottom, you will find your way to the top." Julian accepted the job with a grateful heart. For 3 months, Julian carried heavy boxes in the heat of the warehouse. His designer skin became dark from the sun, and his hands became rough. His old friends from the circle would have laughed if they saw him, but Julian didn't care. He was learning how a real business works. He was learning that 1 naira earned is better than 1,000,000 naira promised. While working in the warehouse, Julian noticed that the stock-taking system was slow. He used his university knowledge to create a digital spreadsheet that made everything faster. He showed it to Elias. Elias was impressed. He saw that Julian had finally discovered that his brain was his greatest asset, not his contacts. Elias promoted Julian to the position of inventory supervisor. Julian worked with a new fire in his heart. He was the first to arrive at 7 a.m. and the last to leave. He stopped looking at his phone for big man messages and started looking at the data of the business. He was finally standing on his own feet. A foreign company wanted to partner with a local firm to distribute solar energy systems. They held a bidding process. Many big men with fancy titles and luxury cars showed up, including some of Julian's former friends who were still pretending to be successful. When it was Elias Tech's turn, Elias asked Julian to lead the presentation. Julian didn't talk about connections or uncles. He talked about logistics, customer service, and the systems they had built. The investors were shocked. They said, "Others showed us their names. You showed us your work. We choose you." Elias Tech won the contract. It was worth hundreds of millions of naira. The news went viral. Suddenly, the same influential people who ignored Julian's calls 5 years ago began to call him. They wanted to partner with him. Julian looked at his phone and felt no excitement. He knew these people were only there for the harvest, not the planting. A massive electrical fire broke out in the industrial area where their main office was located. Much of their new stock was destroyed. While other business owners sat down to cry, Elias and Julian were on the ground within an hour, organizing the cleanup and calling their customers to assure them. Their character was stronger than the fire. Because Elias and Julian had been honest with their suppliers, the suppliers told them, "Don't worry about the money. We will give you new stock on credit. We trust you." This was the true circle, a circle built on trust and hard work, not on parties and favors. Within a month, the business was back and even bigger. Elias and Julian were now very wealthy. Elias bought his mother a beautiful house and told her she would never sell fish again. Julian also bought his mother a house and paid for her medical bills. He told her, "Mama, I finally learned that the shortcut is a long road, and the hard work is the true shortcut." Julian ran into Marcus, the billionaire's son, at a gas station. Marcus was struggling because his father's influence had faded. He asked Julian for a favor. Julian said, "Marcus, I cannot give you a favor, but I can give you a job in the warehouse. That is where I learned to be a man. Are you ready to work?" Marcus turned away in pride, and Julian felt pity for him. Elias Tech became a global name. They opened offices in other countries. They weren't just selling electronics anymore. They were building power grids and providing jobs for thousands of young graduates. They became the very big men Julian once dreamed of knowing. But they were different. They were self-made. The university invited Elias and Julian to give the commencement speech to the new graduating class. They stood on the same stage where they had received their diplomas years before. The hall was silent as they looked at the young faces full of hope. Julian spoke first. He said, "I stood here years ago thinking I was a success because of the people I knew. I was wrong. A circle of powerful people is a cage if you don't have your own wings. Do not wait for a man to open the door. Build the house yourself so that you can own the door." Elias stood up and added, "Success is like a ladder made of iron. It is heavy and it is hard to climb, but it will never break under you. Many of you are looking for an elevator. If the power goes out, the elevator will trap you. But if you have your own ladder, you can always reach the top." The story ends with Elias and Julian sitting on the balcony of their headquarters, looking at the sunset over the city. They were no longer two boys with different philosophies. They were two men with one legacy. Julian asked, "Elias, what would have happened if we had both taken the easy way?" Elias smiled and replied, "We would still be waiting for a phone call that would never come. I'm glad we chose the latter." Final motivational note for the video. Your connections may get you a seat, but only your work will keep you at the table. Stop looking for a helper and start looking for a hustle. The ladder of success is waiting for you. Start climbing today.